Good morning, everyone. Thanks for being here. Mr. Trump is known for anything. It's his ability to shake things up. So we have Mr. Attorney Stephen Woods here today to help us through the effects of HR. Mr. Stephen Woods represents companies in all aspects of labor and employment law. He assists national, regional, and local clients on EEOC and employee litigation and traditional labor issues. Stephen lives by a client-centric mantra which combines prevention and practicality to create innovative, business-centered solutions which comply with the law. Everyone, Stephen.
Thank you. Hey, everybody. I would love for you all to ask questions, and I'll do my best to tell you what we think. If you hear me say more than once during this presentation, we don't know yet. It will be because we don't know yet, because things really are evolving. But I want to give you some predictions and prognostications based on what we do know and based on what we've seen so far and what we have definitive, and then really sort of predict some things based on those kinds of things. So I'm going to tell you what we know, and then I'm also going to do some predictions. Does that make sense? Sure. Okay. So for those of you I haven't had the chance to be with before I ascended to the ivory tower where I dispensed useless legal advice, I was actually an HR manager. For several years, I was the HR manager at Greenville News before I went back to law school in the early 1990s. That's so long ago. It really does. I had nothing to do with the delivery of your newspaper or the editorial content in the paper, then or now. But I am delighted to be with you. Okay, so ask questions and we'll interact. All right, so I said I was going to prognosticate. Yes? Okay, good. Everybody okay? All right, you'll tell me if I start to wane as we go. Okay. How's that? The online folks okay with you? All right, we hope so. We'll see. All right, so here's what President Trump has done so far. You've all heard about the executive actions. The majority of the executive actions, from a legal perspective, are more pronouncements of policy as opposed to actual tangible actions. Some are not. Some are true tangible actions that he's taken. We'll talk about those in just a second. But let's talk about what he's done so far. We're gonna cover this smorgasbord. If you feel like you are at the K&W cafeteria, because we're going to talk about a variety of things, welcome to the K&W cafeteria. You can have some Jell-O with some peas in it anytime you want. We're going to cover these items and then answer any questions you might have and get you out here on time for your Friday morning. Okay, so first topic, Obamacare or the Affordable Care Act. President Trump, on his first day, really after inauguration, issued an executive order beginning the process of dismantling and unraveling Obamacare. That executive order by itself did nothing more than say, this is what I want to do. The dismantling has to happen in Congress. That's really where that has to occur. And so as that happens, we expect that there may be any permutation of things. So guess what? Healthcare is complicated. And right now, the Republicans who control the Senate and the House are grappling with this whole concept of, well, what do we do? Do we just want to do away with it? Because if we just do away with it, we're left with a vacuum. And there are folks who are on the Affordable Care Act provided exchange plans who will just have nothing. And you've heard Speaker Ryan and others say we intend to keep some aspects. Most notably, we hear that the coverage into someone's 20s and the pre-existing conditions are things that the Republican leadership is evaluating. Well, guess what? And this is no digging at all of the Republican leadership at all. That's complicated. Because if you want no pre-existing conditions and you want to cover until someone's in their 20s, you have to have all right. We'll figure that out. So as we're looking at that, there are going to be some things that sort of take shape as things change. So for now, we don't know what that's going to look like when it's all said and done. And so really, I can tell you on this one, we're in progress, but stand by. I do want to be sure you understand one thing. the Affordable Care Act still is the law of the land. And so until that gets undone, that law of the land is one that you need to comply with. We are monitoring these developments, and they are vast and large. And as we begin to see what's going to happen, we'll be publishing blogs and letting you know kind of what's happening if you do that. And so the unwinding, how many of you had the pleasure of getting all your healthcare plans ACA compliant? Yeah, okay. So that was fun. And as we unwind or modify or amend, there'll be some of that same fun. Although, here's some good news. We don't think it will be quite as complicated to unwind as it has been to switch around. So stand by on that. All right. So under President Obama, there are some things that executive orders do, and there were a variety of things that President Obama did that President Trump has either undone or has said he's going to undo. Let's talk about this. So this is Andy Puzder. He is the nominee for the Secretary of Labor. The Department of Labor, as you all know, has a wide swath. They do a huge variety of things, the biggest of which is they enforce wage and hour. They're responsible for all of the wage and hour items there. Yeah, that was like kind of cartoon character I saw on my television this morning. So the purview and the swath that the DOL cuts is a big one. Secretary nominee Puzder has 4 times delayed his confirmation hearings. Why? He is the president and CEO of Hardee's and Carl's Jr., and he has been an outspoken opponent of raising the minimum wage. He's been an outspoken opponent of the overtime regulations that were set to take effect on December 1st. And he has some pretty provocative ads. Anybody seen the ads that his companies have done? So they don't do it as much here. In California, where he's based, where Carl's Jr. is more prevalent than Hardee's. Hardee's is huge here. They're scantily clad women who are eating a hamburger, usually over some car or some other, backdrop. There are a lot of people who don't love that, and he's defended those in the past. And the folks that don't love him, Elizabeth Warren and some of the others in Congress, are geared up to fight him. They've collected a variety of stories and affidavits from his employees who say they were forced to work off the clock, that their managers were misogynistic, racist, etc. And so they're kind of lining up to do that. Puzder has been wildly successful from a business perspective. And so President Trump loves him from that perspective. And there are a lot of people who think he got some great ideas, but the labor movement in particular and the Democrats are really lined up for him. This is one, we've seen controversial cabinet secretary picks. Betsy DeVos, Rex Tillerson. They are in the process. He has not yet turned in his paperwork. There are a lot of people who are contemplating and speculating about why. One of the things he has to do when he turns in his paperwork is talk about how he's going to avoid contracts. So this, unlike Rex Tillerson, who was able to sort of extricate himself from his dealings, he's still the current ongoing president and CEO of an ongoing successful venture. And so there's some people who speculate that he really wanted to do this, but now that he's looking at what it takes to sort of get out of all of his business dealings and not have conflicts, he's sort of like, well, I'm not sure I want to do it. He's been a huge player in this space. He's written books, he's written editorials, he's blogged, he's appeared in Congress. So he's got a lot of stake in this, but whether he's going to actually go through the confirmation process is anybody's guess. So what do we expect in a Puzder, if he's the DOL secretary and he makes it through, what do we expect? Well, he's absolutely going to undo the overtime regulations that all of you work so hard to get ready for on 12. You all know that those overtime regulations currently are stayed. Federal judge issued an injunction on those the Tuesday before Thanksgiving. Happy Thanksgiving, y'all. And he said, we're going to stay these for a little while. The legal impact of that is that those regulations are paused, and they're not going to take effect until and unless that injunction is lifted. Now, if we did not have that had happened, and we didn't have the Trump administration, I would tell you, as we told everybody at the time, danger. Danger, 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 because it's a law that's been stayed. And so if you decided that between 12/1 and the time the injunction is either lifted or made permanent, if you decided not to convert your folks over and follow the new regs, we found in another context for another set of DOL regs issued about a year and a half ago, there was some liability. There was, long story short, there was a set of home health care regulations issued about 2 years ago that changed some of the exempt and non-exempt status. And when that happened, there was a stay put in by somebody challenging those. And a lot of companies said, woohoo, we're excited, we're not going to follow that because these have been stayed, the home health care regs. So they didn't. Eventually, that stay got lifted, and those regs went into effect. And when they did, the courts that were dealing with this gap period between the time that they should have gone into effect but were stayed and the time it was lifted, about half of the courts said that the stay was a great excuse and a great cover, and that you didn't need to change to comply with the old home health care regs. The other half of the court said the opposite. They said, these are regs, they went into effect, despite the stay, that was the effective date, and you should have changed that effective date. So we saw a split with that. That's what we were analyzing based on what we were looking at the week of Thanksgiving. Now that we've seen some of the things that President Trump has done, and candidly, we've seen him really keep some of his campaign trail promises that we weren't sure was going to happen, because that's not how it always works in politics. Surprise, surprise. Once he did that, I think we're all very confident that these regs are never going to take effect. And so they are not going to be ones where we see that kind of gap concern for you all. And so I think if you have not implemented the 12/1 regs, you're actually in pretty good shape of those, because we're hearing sort of telegraphed messages from the Trump administration. Certainly if PUSDR gets confirmed, that they're not going to move to enforce those. So we had an Obama DOL where a private group filed the stay, the overtime regs stayed, and then once that happened, the DOL under the Obama administration said, we're fighting that. We've not heard anything definitive from the Trump administration. But what we believe is, based on what he's done here, and based on his pick on PUSDR, we believe that he is not going to fight that at all, whether it's PUSDR or somebody else. So if the DOL doesn't fight it and try to overturn the injunction, it goes away. If we had not had that bit of insight that the DOL was not going to continue to fight, we still would be concerned about it. Questions about that?
Is there a time limit, a statute of limitations to leave a state, or does it, after that time period, does it just go, when you say go away, what do you mean by that?
Yeah, great question. So the stay is actually technically in effect until something happens. So following a temporary stay, it either becomes a permanent injunction, or there is a final outcome in the challenge case. So the challenge got filed saying we don't think the DOL had authority, and they based on a bunch of stuff. And the judge initially, very early on, said, I'm going to issue a temporary injunction, a stay. And that stay then goes to either a permanent injunction or a final hearing, and they decide what they're going to do. If at any point in that process, the business advocacy group that filed the lawsuit, if the DOL says, we're not going to appeal anymore, we're not going to fight you anymore, then the challenge, basically, that whole case goes away, and so do the regs. there is no time limit. And so if we had not gotten this pretty clear message that the Trump DOL was not going to pursue it, I'd still be warning you about the gap, because it can go on for 6 or 7 months, and the judge could lift it and say, well, I issued this originally, but now I'm going back and instituting these, and you might be concerned about the gap. Great question. How we pay our mortgages. Okay, so we also saw some other personnel changes. This is Vicki Leitnick. She is a Republican appointee who was named acting chair of the EEOC. She has spoken at Ogletree events, lots of management side labor and employment events many times. She's bright. She is gifted. We don't know if she's going to be the permanent chair, but she's the acting chair for now. So that's a great piece of information here. Philip Miskamara, it was also named acting chair of the NLRB. Philip actually has an Ogletree connection. He was with the firm that we merged with in Chicago 15 years ago, and is considered a conservative. He's a Republican appointee, as is Vicki Leitnick. Both of them are considered to be pro-business, and so we expect we're going to see some changes there. Now, let me tell you something about the NLRB. First mention this. The NLRB is a body made up of, let's talk about the EEOC first. So the EEOC has 5 commissioners and a solicitor, and they really make up the policy of what the EEOC does. You all have read about the fact that sexual orientation, despite not being in Title VII, because Title VII covers gender, a lot of the EEOC's work in the past 3 or 4 years has been to take the sexual orientation piece and wedge that into gender. That's been a big part of their stated initiative to do that. And courts that have heard that have generally been receptive. Some have not. That policy making on that particular instance, and many others, is all done by those 5 commissioners and the solicitor, the general counsel. That body sort of works in concert. The NLRB has 5 individuals who are members of the board who actually hear cases. These commissioners don't really, they can hear cases, but that's not really their role. They're policy advocates. They sort of decide how it's going to be. So the EEOC, a commissioner and an acting commissioner, has much more authority and control at the EEOC than they do at the NLRB. The NLRB also has a general counsel, and that general counsel brings cases before the 5 members of the NLRB. So you can have members of the NLRB that are as far right as they might be, and that still doesn't necessarily impact how the case is brought. It impacts how the case is decided, but it doesn't impact policy. The EEOC commissioners, on the other hand, decide sort of how the strategic plan is going to work, and they pass that out to the office. So what's that mean for you? What that means is that if Vicki Leitnick decides under the guidance of the Trump administration that she wants to be more pro-business, she can do that much quicker than Mr. Kamara can do it with the NLRB. Because the NLRB has to actually have a case before it can change something. Vicki Leitnick can do that by sending messages out to the field and basically saying, here's our new policy initiative. That makes sense? So we think we're going to see more quicker change from the EEOC than we see from the board. So what do we think we might see? So right before the Obama administration went out of office in the fall, and before, candidly, the surprise result, at least to pollsters in the election, the EEOC came out with their systemic initiative. And basically, they continued to push this whole concept of if we find a little bit of evidence of race discrimination, age discrimination, etc., we're not interested, the commission has told us, on one charge. We'll do those. But we're more interested in is that symptomatic of a problem, bigger problem at a company. They want to do a big systemic kind of investigation. And if you've ever had the displeasure of getting a letter from someone whose title is systemic investigator, that is not your best day. Because that means they're going to launch into a huge initiative. I'll tell you a story about one of my clients, not a local client. They got an EEOC charge about 6 years ago from an individual, and it was that they had done something that was unlawful based on race. And we looked at that charge, we helped them defend that charge, we submitted a position statement, and then we got a second charge. And that charge was from a different facility. And that charge was accompanied by a letter from the systemic investigator. And we got 8 more charges. And it's 7 years later. And they just now, after lots of poking around and data and statistics and that kind of thing, have just now issued cause. So we're just now getting to the place where we're able to talk about what do they think we did wrong. We responded, because there's nothing else you can do, for 6 years on different charges. The whole time my good client was saying, how can you move this along? And I said, we can't rush the commission. They get to take their time on that. And we talked about going to see the general counsel in D.C. I've done that, by the way. It doesn't do any good. You can do anything you want, but they're going to take their time. Under LEAPNET, we may see some of that focus on systemic discrimination move back to individual charges. Why is it they did systemic discrimination? They did systemic discrimination because they felt like that gave them more bang for their buck, both from a dollar perspective and from an impact perspective. So instead of dealing with, this bad, one racist, misogynistic manager, they were able to sort of tackle a culture, and that makes headlines, and that generates dollars. So that's really why they switched to that systemic initiative. We think we may see some tweak on that. You all know that the EEO-1 form is being revised to fund, right? Yeah. To pull more data and allow that EEOC to examine more things from a systemic discrimination perspective. We may see some pulling back of that. Only time will tell, so stand by on that. We talked about this. We talked about that. We talked about the overtime regulations. Any questions about the overtime regulations? We walked through that a decent amount. I'm going to ask for confession because it's good. So, yes, ma'am.
I have a question on 2 sides of that.
Yeah.
What's the difference between the systemic investigation and a class action?
So a systemic discrimination initiative is sort of the EEOC's version of a class action. The EEOC has the ability, because it's an agency, to actually, they have a lower standard of proof to bring cases forward and actually litigate. You all know that for most things that are based on discrimination, age, gender, disability, those all have to go through an administrative agency, the EEOC or state agency first. Many times that agency doesn't find cause. And if they don't, they issue a right to sue letter, which is the ticket for that person to go file a private lawsuit. Sometimes the EEOC does take up the case. In the case of my client, where we've been litigating this for 7 years, we think the EEOC probably would litigate this case. They asked for 70 million in their first statement. Yeah, that was fun. Good fun. So their standard of proof from a systemic pattern of practice allegation is actually lower than if they issued a right to sue and a private lawyer had to bring a class action. As an agency of the federal government, they get the ability to connect the dots with less proof. If they issue a right to sue and say, we either found cause, but we're not going to pursue this, or we didn't find cause, so you can pursue this, once that shifts to a class action arena, the standard of proof goes back up to a more normal level to have a lot of things in check. That's when it becomes a class action. It's under them, it's a systemic sort of investigation. Question? So you can teach this, I know, because you had the displeasure of having to deal with that. Okay. We may see some of this. We've seen, you've all seen the Fight for 15, those initiatives, which are largely pushed forward by folks who are making minimum wage and think that needs to be raised. The Obama administration was very supportive of Fight for 15. The Trump administration and Puzder in particular hate Fight for 15. Puzder has said, and I'm not advocating this, I'm just telling you what he says. He says that if you pay higher than current minimum wage, if you pay 15 to his workers at Hard Cross Juniors, that would bankrupt their profits, bankrupt the company, erode their profits, and businesses would not go into that level at all because there's not enough margin in profit. And he's got lots of stats and pretty graphs and that kind of thing to support that. I'm not telling you he's wrong, but he does not support raising the minimum wage. So if he gets confirmed, or if someone in his image gets confirmed, we don't think that that's going to happen. Now, Washington is famous for putting up a boogeyman, either in the form of Puzder or in the form of some kind of terrible, terrible bill, and then folks like us get in a room and we say, it's going to be terrible, or it's going to be great, and then they at the last minute put something in that's less bad than that, and we all think, when that's really all they intended in the beginning. That's sort of some of the thinking behind Puzder. Some of the cynics think that Puzder was put up not necessarily because Trump thought he would make it through, but to make him such a boogeyman. And then at the last minute to put somebody in that's less Puzder-like, but still says exactly some of the same thing Trump does. That's not been his typical MO in the new administration, but who knows? Maybe that's going to happen, whether that was the original plan with Puzder or not. Okay. So all of you probably heard me or one of my colleagues or somebody else talking about joint employment. We have huge initiatives from the DOL, from the NLRB and the EEOC on joint employment, particularly where you had staffing companies, a subject near and dear to my heart, looking at evaluating whether they would be considered joint employers under both Title VII, the National Labor Relations Act, a variety of things. We think that those are probably going to be relaxed a bit. Puzder, keep going back to that. He's a huge figure in this. That would, in many cases, destroy or greatly hinder the franchise model, because franchisees pride themselves on having a franchisor and a separate franchisee, and the franchisee employees don't bump up or have legal liability beyond the franchisee. They can't go all the way back to the franchisor. And so that's been Puzder's model. It's worked really, really well for him. He's fought challenges to that. And so joint employment sort of blows that away. It says that the franchisee employee not only has a cause of action against the franchisee, but also against the franchisor. So Puzder's got, not just personal business feelings about this. He's got sort of his experience shaped by his own business experience as well. Okay. We talked about this. There are 5 members of the NLRB. Typically, there are 3 members appointed by the executive branch. They're all appointed by the executive, but there typically are 3 that are appointed by the executive branch from a high level, from the ruling party, and there are 2 that are sort of concessions to the other party. And all NLRB cases are heard either by a 3-member panel, which is made up of 2 members of the majority and 1 member of the minority party, or sometimes, if it's a big case, they'll be heard by all 5. That's called, it's a fancy legal word for en banc. That's how they hear some of the cases, particularly high profile. So that's how we expect this to go, but it's sort of anybody's guess. There are no set rules indicating that the ruling political party gets only 3 seats. Have you you seen some unexpected things in the last election cycle? We don't know what's going to happen. We have not seen any telegraphing from either campaign trail or since taking office that they're going to upend this system of 3 Republicans and 2 Democrats, but they're not. We don't know how that's going to shake out. But if it goes the way it should, or it's traditionally gone, we'll have 3 Republican appointees and 2 others. And so Trump gets the ability, just because of the way the terms are staggered, he gets the ability to fill 2 vacancies with 2 of those folks. And then he'll be able to then switch control of that, of the agency, to really a Republican-led majority as he does. Questions about that? He is limited somewhat by when terms expire. That part he can't change. So there is some limitation. So this is fascinating to me as a labor employment lawyer. When you look at the statistics, union leaders do not like President Trump. Union members like President Trump, or at least held their nose and voted for him. One of the 2. States that are traditionally union states, and therefore would have been Democratic states, Hillary Clinton states, voted en masse for President Trump. He said that yesterday when folks Harley-Davidson came. Harley-Davidson is highly unionized, and Harley-Davidson was at the White House yesterday, and he brought them in, and one of the first things he said, as he always does, he talked about if they vote for him or not, and that's one of the first things he said was, thank you for the votes, and then he said out loud, well, how many of you are steel workers? Well, no management are steel workers, but that's beside the point. He said, well, your union leadership doesn't like me, but I know you like it. It's exactly right. That's what the stats show, is the union members voted for him. So here's what's fascinating to me. The pundits say the reason that resonated with union members was because of Trump's pro-business message. Doing away with NAFTA, stopping the import, stopping the flow of jobs offshore. What's interesting is, on Wednesday, 2 things. One, he has a pretty good relationship with unions, although there's some unions that would tell you that's not true, from his personal business dealings. On Wednesday, a bill was introduced in the House called the National Right to Work Bill. That bill gets introduced every session and is routinely defeated. And if there were an Obama administration in the White House, it would get vetoed, and it wouldn't have enough of a majority to be able to override the veto. The National Right to Work Bill is a national version of the state bill that we have in South Carolina and that 28 other states have right now, that in essence says if a union gets voted in at your workplace, that people don't have to join the union or pay union dues. So guess what that would do to the union financial coffers if that took hold on a nationwide basis? It would decimate unions. Guess who has expressed support for the National Right to Work bill? That guy. So even though he said from the trail, I'm in favor of national right to work, or right to work generally, union members voted for him. Again, it might have been because they had to hold their nose, they didn't like the other choice, and so they did that. But on Wednesday, we see this bill introduced, and the folks in my corner of the world are saying, this may have a shot at getting through for the first time ever. So instead of 28 states, South Carolina included, saying, if a union gets voted in at your job, you don't have to pay dues, which, shock to you all, if the union doesn't get dues, they can't operate. Like a church, like a business, they're business. And so they have to get dues to operate. If national right to work happens, it will cause, as one pundit I read said, an existential crisis in the whole labor movement because they won't be getting enough money to continue to do what they do. And President Trump supports that. It's going to be interesting. Those are going to be some interesting conversations. We'll call them conversations. that they have. They may be had over Twitter. They may be in person. This is a big one in our world of labor law that really had an impact. We said early on that we were going to oppose this, and I'm proud to say that Ogletree was a huge piece of this actually being stayed. The Persuader Rule said that if any company used an outside firm to help them defeat a union in a campaign, or try to defeat a union in a campaign, at that point, the union, the law firm or other consulting firm had to disclose all of the law firm or consultant's financial records. We are not a publicly traded entity at my firm, and while we have perhaps the most transparent compensation and other system of any firm that I'm familiar with, we all know what each other makes. That's good and bad, by the way. We don't disclose that to the world. We don't do that for a variety of reasons that you can imagine. One of which is we don't want the union saying, look at how much the Ogletree Deakins lawyers made off of, fighting the union here. This Persuader Rule would have required us, as entities that help management oppose unions, disclose a tremendous amount about our internal financial picture. We didn't like that. And we didn't like that for a lot of reasons. A huge one of which is we didn't want our clients to have to disclose that. We fought that and got it stayed. We think under the Obama administration, this may go away. We think that's going to just go away. And this was a huge fight for the last 3 years. Not one that was on your radar, I'm sure, but was certainly on ours. Okay. What other things do we think we're going to see? We think we're going to see micro-bargaining units, which has been a huge thing in the NLRB. We think that's going to go away. What that means in English is that instead of saying that all of the employees at Nordstrom need to either vote in favor of the union or not, we'll pick this one disgruntled department, we'll call it the shoe department, where they've got a terrible manager, and we're going to have an election just in the shoe department. We've been fighting those kind of battles for 25 years, but the board had really gotten to the place where they would do a micro unit in a second, which makes the employer's ability to win much more challenging. Okay, we're closing in on our time, and I promise I'm going to get you out here at quarter after. Be sure we answer any questions you want to do. So you all have read this. The president on the 27th suspended folks from being able to come in from these 7 countries and cited the fact that those were terrorist hotspots to be able to do that. Unfortunately, the criticism of that, the pro of that is that there are a lot of folks who believe that there are a lot of bad people who are coming in from these. From a legal perspective and sort of a cultural perspective, there are a lot of people who call the Muslim ban not going to debate whether it is or is not, but there are a lot of other people who thought that there was no notice. And there were people who were out of the country who have been sort of stuck. This impacted both non-immigrant visas, which is H-1Bs, B-1s, etc., and lawful permanent residents, green card holders. There's been a tiny bit of relaxing on the green cards, but there's not an automatic re-entry just because you have a green card. You have to be screened. And guess what? Those are going slow. So the Border and Customs Patrol is doing all of that. And so you all read, because it flooded social media, it was all in our local media, a Clemson student who was caught because she'd gone home, she had a green card, and she wasn't able to get back in. Those are the kinds of things that we're seeing with this kind of thing. If you need more information about this particular order, we've got a great blog on our website that answers the hottest 20 questions. And we decided, in consultation with our clients, we would direct the blog really at employees, because they are the ones who tend to have the questions. And so it's phrased in terms of, should I travel? How will this impact me? We are absolutely a management side labor and employment firm. We don't represent employees. We felt like that was the right way to phrase that. So check those questions out. Everybody knows about the wall. I want to talk about 2 things before we wrap up. One is maternity leave, and the other is really the Supreme Court. No, nothing in the headlines about the Supreme Court. Court, right? Yeah. This is interesting because the phrase "we live in interesting times" really is true today. Because you have this pro-business president who was voted for by unions but likes right to work, but yet expressed support for paid maternity leave. It's this real dichotomy. I mean, if you're looking at sort of what you would expect someone of this mold or that mold or this mold to do, he's not fit much of that in one cohesive picture. From the trail, he said he supported 6 weeks of paid maternity leave. And Ivanka has said that she supports paid maternity leave. So what's that going to look like? We don't know. Does that sound like the pro-business agenda? We would typically say no, but we may see some of this sort of coexisting with that as well. Time will tell on this. You all have heard, paid leave agendas forever. Typically, we don't hear paid maternity leave. Why? Because what you do for women employees, you're supposed to do for men employees. So if you give maternity leave, you should give the same amount of leave for testicular cancer. Those are legal issues that will have to be worked through before anybody can do that, but we may see some of these kinds of things coming out. Supreme Court. You all heard the announcement on Tuesday evening. I was trying to listen. My child was trying to talk to me, and I was like, Daddy, this is important. Stop talking. We have the vacancy on the Supreme Court that Judge Gossage has been nominated to fill. I promise I did not put a coffee filter over this. This is his official portrait. I don't know why it looks like this, but this is his official portrait from the 10th Circuit. I'm pretty good at carping stuff off the web, and this is it. I mean, this is his real portrait. Pretty gauzy. Here is what people have evaluated him based on all of his opinions. The pundits and the experts have pegged him here. So if you look at where he falls in the liberal to conservative, whatever that definition is, he's at this end of the conservative, no surprise there. And then I thought this was a pretty good graphic. From a judicial sort of temperate perspective, this is where he falls. You have these folks down at the bottom from this end with Justice Sotomayor and Ruth Bader Ginsburg. This is the liberal end. This is the conservative end. And this piece in the middle, as you all know, the fact that Chief Justice Roberts actually penned the opinion saying that Obamacare was lawful and able to go forward. Sometimes people that you wouldn't think would be one way tend to sit in the middle and swing. So Justice Kennedy is absolutely a swing. Justice Roberts, Chief Justice Roberts, has been in the past. Justice Alito is here. Justice Thomas is all the way up here. And the thought is that this is where Justice Gorsuch would go in if he's confirmed. Here's where people say Antonin Scalia, who recently passed away and whose position is being filled by Judge Gorsuch. That's where he'd be. So it would be a little bit of a tick up on the conservative side. So what does that mean from an employment perspective? So looking at the employment cases that have been handled by Judge Gorsuch in the 10th Circuit, there are 9 of those. 5 of those were pro-employer, 2 of those were pro-employee, and 2 were mixed. There's not a huge tea leaf reading that we can do based on his employment cases so far, although we do think that that conservative bent may bode well for employers. Only time to. Okay, so Alicia told me that I had to get you out if we're out for the middle of this thing. 4 minutes over, you're going to shoot me. I'm going to pause and just say, these are the big cases that are going to come up, and then to say to all of you, I'm happy to answer any questions that you all might have about Trump or the Trump administration or any other topics you want to have. Come on, it's free. Jack.
Talk a little bit about your view in terms of federal preemption and state activity, which we know is going to crank up, and maybe perhaps around an issue like minimum wage.
Yeah. So the Constitution sort of splits authority up between the federal government and the state government, and we expect that some states and localities, depending on where you are, how many of you have responsibility outside of South? Yeah. So I don't think we're going to see a lot of locality ordinances in South Carolina, but there have been other states that have been surprising, where we've seen not just the ones New York, California, New Jersey, Connecticut. Beyond those, we've seen some local states and local counties and cities pass lots of things. There are some things that are uniquely in the space of the federal government, and whatever the federal government says goes. And there's a huge variety of law around that in the class that I did not take, by the way, in law school. It talks about whether or not the federal government can do that or not. Minimum wage is actually not one of those. There are lots of local minimum wages. San Francisco has one. There are a variety of ones all over the country. So states can come in and localities can come in and do some of these kinds of things. There are other things like the National Labor Relations Act, where typically when a state has tried to come in and do something not like right to work, but really right in the wheelhouse of the National Labor Relations Act, groups have inevitably sued and said, no, the NLRA is solely for the federal government. You can't do that at the state level. But we do think in the space where they're preempted, like minimum wage, like bandbox, like some other kinds of things that we're seeing, we do think we're going to see an uptick, particularly in more liberal states, more Democratic-leaning states, for a variety of local things to get passed. For you who have locations or employees or applicants in those states, it makes it more challenging because you don't have one sort of set of rules. You have to figure out what the rules are in lots of different places. Great question. Yes, sir.
If they don't have the votes to really repeal Obamacare, what's your best guess where we'll be in 6 months on the mandates? Because they can take the teeth out of it, but they can't repeal it.
You know, I am always happy to prognosticate. That's the one issue that I just don't know. I don't know what they're going to do because they've not given us enough of a statement to even read tea lips. You know, Speaker Ryan has said, we want to keep those two things. Those, candidly, are two of the most expensive pieces of it. And so I think there's going to be an awful lot of backward force trading to get to something. And I don't know what it's going to look like. So I'm always happy to prognosticate, probably with that exception, because I really don't know. So I'm sorry to not prognosticate. I think I'll be bad. Yes, sir.
Please don't conflate the term health care and health insurance. It's done all the time in media, government officials, journalists. Health care is not health insurance. Health insurance pays for health care. People say Obamacare or ACA, and they conflate the two terms. So as HR professionals, let's be specific.
Great.
Health insurance pays for health care. Health insurance is not health care. So
Right.
It just annoys me whenever I see that.
Yeah.
Does it annoy you?
No, thank you. I appreciate that. That's a great point. It really is. Yeah. Yeah. Great point. What else? Let me say. Yeah, sure.
Closer to home. Down in Charleston, it's going to be a pretty big event on February 15th. Do you have any one of two predictions? One, will the vote happen this time? And two, what do you think would happen?
You're talking about voting, or are you talking about
voting?
So,
February 15th, sorry.
Yeah. Happy Valentine's Day. I think they're going to turn out okay. They've done.
Do you think you'll hold the vote this time?
I don't know. I think that they've had a tough time getting a hold of that. That's one reason that they built here. And then we had our now departed governor famously sued. We defended her in that lawsuit when she said that, you know, we don't want unions here, and the unions didn't like that very much. I think that I think they'll probably withdraw. I do. Because they are, but we'll see. We've had a little bit of hand in that, so I can't comment too much on that, but it's one of those things that I think we'll see when it shakes out. A union election in South Carolina is unheard of. You know, we don't typically see that, not on that kind of scale. Pretty much.
Big impact.
Yeah, huge impact. Really would. And a huge employer. And a very revered employer. It would be the equivalent up here of the, yeah, it would be. Other questions? Let me say thank you to our folks and our friends at HTI for sponsoring, for the awesome coffee and beverages and a cool space. Despite the audio-visual connection, I hope those of you who are linked up have us at Ogletree from time to time have happened, so no big deal on that. I hope those of you who joined us by web were able to hear, and so I thank you for coming. And Alicia, anything you want to say, or you guys want to?
No problem. Thank you so much.
Thank you to HTI. Thank you all for coming. Happy Friday.